The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 202 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, what is going on?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
Doing great.
Yeah.
I'm ready for another great episode of Unsolved.
Awesome, man. We
have a brand new episode out on TCAT right now that I think people are really going to like.
Oh, man, it was so good.
We're headed to Wollongong, Australia, to talk about the teenage murderer Mark Valera. This is a story that blew me away.
Yes.
For a number of different reasons. First of all, his murders are some of the more horrific ones that you'll find.
Very horrific.
They're extremely brutal. And then there's some twists and turns to this case that you would just never see coming.
All I can say is make sure you listen all the way to the end.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt. Gibbs, we continue to see some amazing Patreon support. Let's give some shout outs.
All right.
We had Liz Villegas.
Hey, Liz.
Diana Stoker.
Hey, Stoker, you're stoked.
Julie Christie.
What's up, Christie?
Miles Alinder.
See, Miles is a good name. I think of like Miles Davis and
a lot of good Miles.
Yeah.
Jenna Ann.
Hey, Jenna.
Anthony.
What's up, Anthony?
Melissa Nance.
Hey, Melissa.
Julie Ellis.
Hey, Julie.
Rose Arucha. Alexandria Dunbar.
Hey, Dunbar.
Cameron Street.
What's going on, Cameron?
Jean Christie.
Hey, Jean.
Julia Glazer.
Hey, Julia.
Michael O'Connor.
Hey, thank you, Michael.
Cheryl.
Just good old Cheryl.
Deb Turner.
Hey, Deb.
Kristen Lauterbach.
What's going on, Lauterbach?
David Kelly.
Hey, appreciate that, David.
Amy Jackson.
Hey, Amy.
Scott Connor.
Thank you, Scott.
Janice Foote.
Hey, Janice.
Anna Creel.
Appreciate that, Creel.
Georgia Negrini.
Negrini?
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Cindy Bauer.
What's up, Cindy?
And Annie whatever.
Annie, get your gun.
Insert whatever you want,
is
what she's basically saying.
I like that.
Make up whatever last name you want. And then we go back into the vault, Gibbs.
All right.
This week we selected Rebecca Hirschkopf.
Well, thank you, Rebecca.
Longtime supporter of the show.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that long-term support. We appreciate the new support as well. We had some great PayPal donations from Eva's Nature Therapy.
Well, thank you, Eva.
Kathy Snyder.
Well, thank you, Kathy.
Jennifer Ailman.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And Heather Allen.
Awesome, Heather.
So thanks to all of you as well. Gibbs, we've got some big news.
Yes, we do.
That we want to share with everyone. It's something that you and I have been waiting on for quite a while, and it's almost here. We are releasing all of the unsolved episodes, all the way back to number 1 on the main feed. I don't know if it'll be done by the time this episode comes out, but if not, it should be within the next week or so. And it's something you and I have been trying to do for a while now, and we finally have the opportunity.
Yes.
For those of you that are on Stitcher Premium, you'll still be able to find our episodes ad-free there. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We finished up our 2-parter on the Grimes sisters' murders, and now we're picking a case that is very close to home.
Very local.
It's the 2008 unsolved murder of Heather Walker in our hometown of Dayton, Ohio. And Gibbs, this is a case that I really wasn't all that familiar with, and I'm not sure why. As a true crime podcaster, I kind of had to look down on myself for not being aware of this case, not doing it sooner, not getting the word out, not shedding light on this to our listeners.
Well, in fairness to us, it really wasn't in the news a lot when it first occurred. And then over the later years, as anniversary dates came up, it got more publicity.
Yeah. And then we found out about it. But yeah, I still kind of look down on myself and think, man, you should have been aware of that.
Yeah.
I looked down on you too, but I left that out on the first try.
Typically you do that regardless.
Usually I do that first.
Yeah.
Heather Nicole Walker was born on November 23rd, 1989, to Robert Jr. and Tammy Walker in Dayton, Ohio. Heather has an older brother, Robert III, who was her best friend. Heather's dad, Robert, owned and operated a successful martial arts training gym where he was known as Coach Bob to his students. Heather's mother, Tammy, said that Heather was a fun and likable girl who had a lot of friends. Heather wanted to be a hairstylist when she was a teenager, and she would make money now and then doing friends' hair as a side gig.
Like you wanted to be a hairstylist when you were younger.
I did. I used to do hair.
Yeah.
On the side.
That's how you got close to hair.
Heather attended Ruskin Elementary and then went on to Wilbur Wright. At the age of 15, Heather became pregnant and started attending school online. And she continued with online schooling while she was raising her baby boy, Devin Justin Holbrook Walker, who was born on February 26, 2006. Tammy said that Heather loved her baby boy. She played with him all the time, as did Tammy as well. Heather and her family always lived on Dayton's Eastside at their home on Gummer Avenue. And Gibbs, I think we need to talk a little bit about the east side of Dayton.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, the east side of Dayton wasn't the place to be if you weren't tough. The east side was not forgiving. And if you lived there, it could be rough on you. If you didn't live there and you came in for, let's say, a party or something, it could be even rougher.
Yeah, you really had to know where you were going, where you were going to be at, and you definitely didn't want to be at the wrong place at the wrong time because it would not be good. Now,
it was also a very tight-knit community of families and individuals who understood how the neighborhood worked. You know, the East Side had a lot of gangster teens and young adults running around. Some of these guys had on their social media pages, Gibbs, which back then was probably MySpace.
Which I'm sure you were a big contributor to.
I never actually had a MySpace page at all, but they were posting, you know, bags of weed, wads of cash, handgun or two.
They would post pictures of their used car, but with these really expensive rims. Like the rims were worth more money than the car they were on.
Well, sometimes that's just the way you got to roll.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
But, you know, some of these teenagers, young adults, they weren't afraid of anyone. If they wanted something, they took it. The city of Dayton 5th District Police Department was busy combating some of those activities. There was a high rise of drug use. There was a lot of overdoses, prostitution, theft, and vandalism. The Dayton Daily News reported that sometime in January of 2008, Heather Walker underwent a cervical cancer procedure. To deal with the pain during recovery, she was prescribed Vicodin. As the weeks went by, Heather started feeling much better, but every now and then she would need the pain pills. On Saturday, February 9th, her family and her brother's friends were throwing a birthday party for her brother. Now, of course, Gibbs, she wanted to be there. She was excited about it. The party was being thrown just up the road from her house. So Heather walked to her brother's friend's house around 7:30 p.m. According to Heather's brothers and other people, she left the party with some friends around 11:15 p.m. and was seen with a friend in the parking lot at Sam's Market, located at 3501 East 3rd Street. Heather Nicole Walker was last seen wearing blue jeans, a sweatshirt, and a black leather jacket with a fur collar and white Nike sneakers. According to WHIO TV, on Sunday, February 10th, in the morning, Heather's mom received a call from Heather's friend asking if Heather made it home the night before. Tammy said no, and she started to call around to see if she could find Heather. She reached out to friends and family, as well as Heather's son's father, because sometimes she would go and visit him. The problem was that no one had seen Heather. No one knew where she was, and Tammy had not received a phone call from Heather. She knew something was wrong because at the very least, Gibbs, Tammy knew Heather wouldn't fail to call in to check on her baby boy. Later that Sunday, Tammy and Robert reported Heather missing. But according to Tammy, the police did not take her seriously. And I think, Gibbs, she felt as though they kind of blew them off about Heather being missing. Now, she was 18 years old. She was an adult. And, I think from the police's point of view, because she was an adult, she was free to go anywhere that she pleased.
Yeah, just because she didn't come home last night didn't mean that she's missing, is the logic I think they were trying to use towards the parents. The Dayton police went into this whole thing about how they receive over 100 missing person reports per month, and they just didn't have the manpower to track each of them down.
And I think from their point of view, Gibbs, unless the parents had proof that Heather was in danger, there really wasn't anything that police could do. So Heather's parents were told that by police that she would most likely call or return soon.
Well, I think part of the other issue was in Heather's past, she had ran away from home a few times.
So she had previous missing persons reports in her file that turned out to be erroneous, right? She returned. There was nothing wrong.
Right. And she had some drug use in her past that made police believe that she likely ran off.
And I think after being told this, Gibbs, Heather's parents were upset. Their daughter, who had recently turned 18, was missing.
I get she's 18. I just don't know if you can push off a missing persons report just because they're 18. I mean, there's kids that are still in high school at 18.
There are. But from the police's point of view, I get the fact that she's 18. She's an adult. She's free to, kind of do what she wants to a certain extent.
I think that age needs to be pushed up a little bit, right? I think maybe push that age out a little bit. If you're still possibly in high school or you just graduated, I don't know.
Or just take missing persons reports more seriously.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I also get the fact that there are limitations in manpower and all of that. In a perfect world, I think you and I both would like to see every single missing persons report investigated to the fullest extent possible.
Right.
But, I get every department is a little different manpower wise and all that. Now, you said move it up to 21.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, you were still in high school at 21, so I don't know how that would be any different.
But I was in high school teaching at 21.
Oh.
There's the difference. Mensa.
Now, we mentioned the fact that some missing persons reports had been filed on Heather. The Dayton Daily News reported that Tammy Walker did file several missing persons reports when Heather was under the age of 18, because Heather would run off now and then. When she got upset, it was also reported that Heather stole money and prescription medication from her mother's purse. Heather did have a juvenile record. She had some stints of probation starting in 2004 after shoplifting a pair of shoes. She also had a stint for possession of a stolen car. The Dayton Daily News reported that a few of Heather's friends said that she did drugs, but her father was adamant that Heather didn't use drugs. She'd never been charged with using drugs. He said these same friends that claimed she was a drug user were the same friends that encouraged her to shoplift and ride around in a stolen car. Her parents, Robert and Tammy, denied that Heather was a habitual runaway or a drug user. Gibbs, I think Robert and Tammy Walker were extremely upset about the coverage and some of the implications, the accusations made against Heather by the media. In 2008, they posted on a MySpace page that the papers had it wrong. They were painting Heather out to be this bad teenager, but she wasn't. She was a good kid, but she went through some issues like a lot of kids go through.
Yeah, I certainly went through a lot of issues when I was that age. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we've all, if we really were honest with ourselves and look back at, kind of that age, we all had issues to deal with. Now, maybe some of us had more serious issues than others, but
and some of us got lucky through some of those issues. That some of us didn't.
You didn't catch a charge? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying something like that, yeah.
But I think about it from the parent's perspective. As a parent, you don't want to see this type of stuff, right? Written about your child who is missing, whether it's true or not. It's just something you wouldn't want to see. You'd have a hard time with it. And I think even more so if you believed in your heart that it wasn't true. But Heather's parents made the decision. They weren't going to sit around waiting for police to act, so they made up hundreds of flyers with Heather's information and picture on it. Tammy and some family friends distributed these flyers around Dayton's Eastside and in some other communities. Flyers were posted as far north as Troy and as far east as Springfield, as far south as Cincinnati, and to the west in Richmond, Indiana.
So they covered some pretty good ground.
Yeah.
About an hour.
I was going to say 45 minutes to an hour kind of each way.
Yeah.
In a circle. The flyers generated some calls to the family, but nothing that led them to Heather. As weeks turned into months, Heather's family continued to voice their frustration towards the Dayton Police Department because they weren't searching for their daughter. The Dayton PD told the Dayton Daily News that Heather is an adult and they didn't have any evidence of a crime or foul play. She's simply a missing adult, and they do not search for missing adults without cause.
Well, like they said earlier, they just don't have the manpower. When you're getting 100+ missing person cases coming in each month, that's a lot. That's really a lot. I never realized until I seen that data. I thought, wow, that's a lot of people going missing.
It is.
That are being reported missing.
Tammy told news outlets that waiting for word about her daughter was unbearable. And that part I definitely get.
For sure.
I can put myself in, these people's shoes and I try to do that in a lot of these unsolved cases that we do.
Right.
It's tough to think about.
Yeah.
What you would have to go through or what you would go through being in this same exact situation.
Even if you could sleep, waking up, wondering, where's my daughter? And then I wouldn't want to leave the house thinking that she could call or walk in the door at any moment. But then also I'd want to be out there looking at every possible place, road, street, alley, anything to try to find her.
You'd want to be doing everything.
Yeah.
Is my thought, but you can't do everything. And where do you even know where to start? Where do you go? You have no lead. You have no clue that is going to help lead you to your daughter. I think it's tough for you and I because we both have daughters not that much older than Heather Walker was back in 2008. Tammy also mentioned that she had to watch Heather's baby boy go to Heather's bedroom door every day and night, pounding on it, yelling for his mommy. It's heartbreaking stuff.
That's tear jerks right there.
Tammy said, quote, "All I knew what to do was just pick him up and hold him and tell him I wanted her home too." The Dayton Daily News reported that on Saturday, April 26, 2008, a woman smoking crack cocaine in the alley next to an abandoned house on East 3rd Street saw a pair of white Nike sneakers sticking out of a City of Dayton green trash can. When the woman walked up to the trash can to retrieve the sneakers, she was shocked to find out that they were attached to a young woman. This woman was horrified and she screamed as she ran away from the trash can. A man named Wilburn Gibson and another man happened to be walking by at that time. They heard the screams, and so they ran over to investigate. This woman pointed to the trash can, and the two men walked up to it, and they opened the lid. They saw a young woman's body, head first, in the trash can with her feet up in the air.
Something you're not going to see every day. Hopefully never.
I was going to say, it's something you don't want to see ever. And I also think, Gibbs, it's something that we don't always talk about, but individuals who stumble upon a dead body and then alert police and all of that, how much trauma would they go through? Because that can't be an easy thing to live with. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong, let's say, in relation to this person's death, but you still found the dead body.
Yeah.
And
how shocking would that be?
It's going to be shocking. It's also, I would think, going to be traumatizing at different levels to different people.
I think if I was the woman that was smoking the crack, I'd probably give up crack.
I think you should do that anyway, but that would definitely put you in that direction, I would think. So the Dayton police were notified. They were on the scene within minutes, and they taped off the site. But word got out very quickly that the person inside this trash can might be Heather Walker. And that got to Tammy Walker quickly because this wasn't all that far from their house. Once Tammy Walker heard this news, she ran to the site. She ripped through the yellow police tape and saw the body of her dead daughter.
Heartbreaking. People
heard Tammy scream, "She was a good girl, you bastards." Heather was wearing her black leather jacket with the fur collar, a sweatshirt and blue jeans, and her white Nike sneakers. There was no doubt. It was confirmed. It was the body of Heather Nicole Walker. Her body was found just 3 blocks from Sam's Market, where she had been last seen on February 9th. Heather's decomposed body was examined by the Montgomery County coroner and the Miami Valley Regional Crime Lab. The coroner said that she had been dead for some time, but I don't think Gibbs ever really put a good time frame on it, really even an estimate. Heather's body had paint on it. No leads were developed from Heather's remains. The crime scene investigators found items next to and on top of her body inside the trash can. Items like fast food wrappers, magazines, but also they found a can of brown paint and a paintbrush. Tammy told the press whoever had hid her for those 2.5 months was pouring reddish brown paint all over my daughter.
I mean, whoever did this treated Heather like she was trash.
You and I often say that about the way the victims are treated, right? A lot of times they're dumped in locations. This girl was actually put in a trash can.
Yeah.
I mean, that statement doesn't get any more apt than it does in this case.
And for someone to take their McDonald's or Burger King or whatever they were eating, fast food wrappers, and toss it in the trash can next to her body, to take their magazines and toss them into the trash with her, to take their paintbrush and paint can and throw it on top of her or pour it on her like she was nothing. That's a sick, very sick individual.
According to the coroner, the toxicology report came back with really no details of what might have killed Heather, which they thought was odd. So they did some more toxicology tests, and again, the reports came back with nothing. So there was really nothing there, Gibbs, to help in the investigation, to help determine what caused her death. She didn't have any drugs in her system. So not only could they not figure out how she died, they couldn't tell her family or investigators when she died.
Well, that's a problem.
It's a problem on a number of different levels. You know, first of all, you're trying to give information to the family.
Right.
And then you're trying to give information to investigators to help them solve the crime.
Trying to give them that window of opportunity, right?
And right now, nobody has information.
Yeah.
The coroner officially ruled her death as an undetermined homicide by violence. The coroner and investigators stated they knew she had not been bludgeoned to her head, she hadn't been shot, and she hadn't been stabbed. But they knew somehow she had died at the hands of someone. They just couldn't figure out how.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get that undetermined homicide by violence.
Heather's parents demanded to see her body at the coroner's office. The Walkers believed from her body's condition that someone kept Heather's body somewhere else until just days before she was found. While at the coroner's office, Tammy was given a plastic bag with the items found on her daughter, some eyeliner, earrings, and rings. The night she walked to her brother's party, Heather left her purse, wallet, and cell phone behind and took her photo ID and Vicodin with her. Her photo ID and Vicodin were never found.
And that's got to be one of the hardest things any parent has to go through, to go to the coroner's office to see their child laying on one of those tables.
Yeah, it's something that no one wants to think about and no one wants to ever have to go through. Unfortunately, a lot of people do. And I don't know how they get through it, Gibbs. I really don't. Heather's family was upset with investigators when they found out that employees at Sam's Market, the store where Heather was last seen, had not been interviewed by investigators. A cashier saw Heather in the store's parking lot that night and had yet to be asked what they had seen, if anything. The family was frustrated with how the local police handled the missing person report. Now they felt that the police were not being as extensive as they could be into the investigation of their daughter's death.
And that's a problem, right? I mean, if you're already frustrated, you didn't take my daughter's disappearance seriously, and now she's dead. And now we don't feel like you're taking the investigation of her murder seriously.
And I think that's always a problem, Gibbs, in these cases. When the parents are already hurting, they've lost their child. And when they don't believe that the police are doing the job that they should be doing, it's like, okay, an extra layer of hurt.
Yeah.
Right? On top of this unbelievable grief already.
I would be pretty hard on the investigators if this happened to somebody in my family. I would just not think that police were not doing enough.
Well, I can tell you this right now. If I found out that my loved one was murdered and they went missing at a store, from a store.
Yeah.
And we are months after that, we're however many weeks into the investigation, and police have not talked to a single employee of that store, I would lose a lot of confidence and I would be very upset.
You would be at that store investigating them yourself.
I'd be questioning people as they left from work.
You would be.
But investigators told the Dayton Daily News that they were working the case. They were canvassing the area, talking to residents. They spoke to the family that lived just 2 houses down from where the body was found. And they asked the couple living there if they had heard or seen anything strange. The couple told investigators it would be strange if we didn't hear or see strange things near that corner of Jersey and 3rd or in the alley. The couple provided information that investigators already knew. That corner was a busy intersection for drug dealers and sex workers. Someone was always at the corner or pulling into or walking in the alley. They mentioned that their vehicle had been broken into 3 times in less than a year. They said that the homes and garages in the alleys are vandalized continuously. Another neighbor told the Dayton Daily News that the area where Heather was found was so bad that they were just waiting for a crackhead, in their words, to break down their door to rob them to get money for their next fix. And that's the reason why they kept a gun on hand at all times of the day. Like, as we mentioned it up front, this was a rough area.
It was a rough area.
And I mean, I think today
Still pretty rough.
Still pretty rough.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a few friends that live down in this area, and they tell me all the time, they're happy that their house is paid off, and that's why they stay there. But they are always on guard. Always.
Well, go back to what these people told the paper. I mean, it's not a great way to live in your own home. to be sitting there with a loaded gun, constantly worried that someone is going to bust through your door and rob you for their next fix.
Yeah. It's like,
makes it hard to watch The Price is Right, man, when you got to be worried about all this other stuff.
Yeah, depending on what street you live on, you're not sleeping good at night.
Heather's family and friends turned the alley where Heather was found into a makeshift memorial the same day she was found. Robert Walker and fighters from his mixed martial arts gym and other MMA fighters from around the area traveled to the alley shrine for a special memorial service for Coach Walker and his family. Days later, it was reported that Robert had his daughter's image tattooed on his chest. Heather's funeral service was held on May 4th, 2008 at 2 p.m. at Maggette Gavin Funeral Home. On the box that holds her ashes, the date of death is March 1st, 2008. And apparently, Gibbs, this was an estimate arrived at with the help of the medical examiner. But in June, a family member told the press that an investigator told them that Heather was murdered around 30 days after she went missing, and it was most likely a forced drug overdose. But the crime lab and the lead investigator told papers that they didn't support that statement. So Gibbs, I think we need to talk about this 30 days as well as the date that is on the box that holds her ashes, March 1st.
Right.
They're probably not that far off, a week or so.
Yeah.
I think you have to ask the question, where was Heather Walker for these 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah.
This time between when she was last seen and when some people believe that she actually was killed.
So was she in the area? I mean, where she was last seen and found were only 3 blocks apart. Did someone bring her back to that location at a later time to keep police thrown off to where she really was? Or did someone actually keep her in that neighborhood?
I think it's just some of the many questions that you have to try to tackle. And then add on top of that, the fact that she is not found for almost 2 months or a month and a half to 2 months later. Where was her body then?
Yeah.
For all of that time before it ended up in the trash can.
I mean, look, there was a lot of abandoned vacant homes back in that time frame. 2008, they were all over the country.
Yeah, that was when the bubble burst.
Yeah.
And when they started, the foreclosures hit hard. And
right.
There wasn't a lot of abandoned homes.
So it would have been easy to keep somebody at one of those homes. But I think that's the big question, where was she held? Obviously, who held her? And was it there or was it off-site somewhere else?
During the investigation, police learned that the green city trash can belonged to a house 3 doors down from the abandoned home where it was found.
Well, that shouldn't be too hard to do because those city trash cans have identification numbers on them. And those numbers are tied to a specific house number.
Police also know that the trash can was not placed there until a couple of days before it was discovered on April 26th. The person who cuts the grass at the abandoned home told police it was not there just days before. The owner of the trash can was cleared during the investigation, and it was found that they had no connection to Heather's murder. Detective Tackett, who is still working on this case, told the news for any mother to have known that her child was put in a trash can and thrown away like trash, I mean, that's devastating. And it is. I mean, there's no doubt. We talked about it earlier. Investigators have interviewed a few dozen people, including the friend Heather was with the last night she was seen. They also looked at 5 young adults who allegedly were seen with Heather at a house on Dover Street on February 9th before she went missing. According to a Facebook post made by Tammy Walker, one of these individuals by the name of Amy failed the polygraph test. When Amy was asked to take a second polygraph, she and her family moved out of state.
Yeah, I can see how people would look at that and question the timing of the move.
Yeah, if it did come right after being asked to take a second polygraph, I can see it too. Another person of interest that police looked at was Wilburn Gibson, the man who called police after hearing the woman scream when she found the body. Wilburn was questioned after discussing the case with a neighbor. And apparently this neighbor thought that with the way Wilburn was describing things, he had to somehow be involved.
And the police had him come down to the station and interviewed him and talked to him again. And it was determined that he had no connection, besides the fact that he was the one that opened up the lid and then eventually called the police.
It's always nice, though, when your neighbor calls the police on you and says, hey, you better look at this guy. He's got to be involved.
Yeah. Scary.
There are a number of names, Gibbs, that get tossed around when people talk about who could have possibly murdered Heather Walker. People like convicted killer Tabary Thompson Shabazz. Shabazz was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years to life for killing Sheila Gibson with a blunt object. Before that, he had been convicted of attempted rape. Some throw out the name of killer Gary Rednauer. He was convicted of killing Kimberly Paradiso on Warder Street, just blocks from where Heather's body was found. 5 boys discovered Kimberly's body on March 14, 2010. She had been strangled and hit in the head with a blunt object. Investigators were able to collect DNA from her body, and eventually they got a hit on Gary Rednauer. He had served time before in New Mexico for the murder of a local dancer. Rednauer's older brother Eddie and his sister Kathleen were convicted for the 2004 murder of a Tip City, Ohio man. Another one of his brothers, Charles, was in prison for burglary, and another brother, Shelby, was serving time for rape. Now, if he had another brother, Daryl,
We'd be in trouble.
we'd be in big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a messed up family.
This is a family you would not want to live next door to.
Rednauer received 15 years to life for the murder of Kimberly Paradiso. Whew. Yeah, I'd have a sale sign in my yard real quick.
Yeah.
If these folks moved in.
Their poor mom. You know, when you go to those different events and parents talk about their kids' achievements.
Yeah. My little Johnny made this, or he's now an attorney.
Yeah.
My daughter Susie's a pediatrician.
It's a little different conversation.
It is. And how do you visit all of these people probably serving time in all these different institutions, and you got put money on their accounts?
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
I think the problem that police have is that none of these convicted killers have been connected to Heather's murder. Heather's mom has said a cold-hearted monster killed her daughter. Detective Tackett of the Dayton PD believes there are people still around who know what happened to Heather Walker. Tammy feels that someone had to help lift Heather's body into the trash can, so she believes that more than one person knows what happened to her daughter. She told WHIO-TV, "Justice will give Heather peace, and that's what I would like for her to have. Nobody's child deserves to be put in a trash can." Robert and Tammy filed for full custody of Heather's son and their grandson, Devin, on August 1st, 2008, and have been caring for him since. If you have any information that could help solve Heather Walker's murder, please call the Dayton police at 937-333-7109. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, heartbreaker, like all of these unsolved cases are.
Right.
Yeah, go back to that phrase that you and I have used countless times. Some monster threw away a victim as though they were trash. We've seen it time and time again, whether they were dumped on the side of the road, thrown in a landfill. Heather Walker was actually left in a trash can.
Yeah.
And her mother found out so quickly that she got down there in time to see it. And that was probably not a good thing because, like she said, nobody wants to see their child in a trash can.
No.
She had to see it, though.
You'd have to relive that vision.
Yeah, her death was so tragic. Heather never got to be the mother that she wanted to be to her son, to experience so many things with him. Her dad, mom, and brother, they'll never get to see her again and have those times with her. The birthdays, the Christmases. Think about all the things that you would miss out on.
Oh, yeah.
With your loved one.
All that was stripped away from them.
Really, Gibbs, she never got to be an adult.
She didn't.
She had just barely turned 18. She never got to live out her dreams because someone stole that from her and tossed her into that trash can. She had some issues in her life, but you have no idea what Heather Walker was going to go on to do. A lot of people have trials and tribulations as a teen, right? We talked about it.
Right.
But a lot of us grow up very quickly and we get past some of those things and we go on to do great things.
That's absolutely right.
And Heather Walker could have been one of those people. I think that's what's so tragic with these cases. You never will know what she would have done, what she would have become, what kind of mother would she have been, and what would she have done with her life?
Yeah, because some person or persons cut her life short and then treated her body like it was trash afterwards.
Hopefully, with all of the new technology investigators have today, they will eventually find out who did this. I mean, somebody needs to pay for this.
Yeah, they do.
There's no doubt about that.
I'm thinking they would probably want to come forward to the police before her dad
gets a hold of him. That's for sure. Or members of his club. Well, that's true. I think one of the issues that police will have is the fact that her cause of death is listed as homicide.
Yeah.
Yet undetermined. But that doesn't mean that someone can't be charged with something. So you would think with the right evidence, they could charge somebody with murder. But even if they couldn't, there's got to be some charge, right? That they could levy at a person responsible. But that's it for the case of the unsolved murder of Heather Walker. Gibbs, we got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Love voicemails.
Hi, this is Terry from Louisville. Call in again. And you were mentioning cities with worldly names. And Kentucky happens to have a Paris, Alexandria, a Cambridge, a Frankfurt, our capital, a Warsaw, and we also have Versailles. And if you don't call it Versailles, people have no idea that you mean Versailles. Named after, of course, Versailles. So keep your own time ticking, and I hope you're both doing well. Bye-bye.
And you're from Louisville?
Or Louisville. But that's why we love Kentucky.
I know, we do.
Ohio's very similar.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of those same, not Frankfurt, but we have a lot of those same. We have Versailles and a Paris and a lot of those.
And I heard from our friends up in Canada about, don't forget, we have a Paris.
Well, I heard a lot. There's we're going to have another voicemail here. There's 20 some states that have a Paris.
Yeah.
But you thought of one, which was good.
Yeah.
That you got the one.
I did get the one.
Hi guys, this is Susan from Illinois again. I was just listening to the second part of the Grimes sisters' disappearance on Unsolved, and you were talking about how many cities there are named Paris in the United States. I was thinking about that. I'm in Illinois, so Paris, Illinois is about 165 miles south of Chicago. And I know there's the Paris, Iowa. I think there's a new Paris in Indiana. Then I got to wondering, how many are there? So I Googled it. And there are at least 23 cities in the United States named Paris. That is pretty weird. Anyway, thanks for everything that you guys do. It's excellent. We love you, and stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
So out of 23, you got the one.
I did.
And I give you credit for that.
I can always say I've been to Paris.
You can. Just another way that we're trying to get people to learn.
Yeah.
Right? You and I, we do that. People think we're not smart.
We could give the answer.
We could give the answer, but we got her to look it up.
That's
and
exactly right.
She learned a whole bunch of stuff. So
you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Jamie from Utah. I just wanted to call. I found your podcast maybe about 2 months ago, and I binged and I caught up and I joined Patreon and listened to all the unsolved that I currently can. But I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you put into your podcast. It's really a ton of fun listening to you guys. I thought about a case here in Utah. A lot of people seem to do a podcast on it, but I'd like to get your take on it. It's the case of Susan Powell. I guess technically it's unsolved, but everyone pretty much knows who did it. It's really intense, lots of twists and turns, really crazy family involvement. It's insane. I'm kind of like a true Gemini. I'm kind of different days I'm Team Mike, different days I'm Team Gibby. So yeah, thanks for all the work you put into it, and keep your own time ticking.
Well, we appreciate the kind words. We appreciate you supporting the show on Patreon. You know, I go back and forth too, Gibbs. Sometimes I'm Team Fergie and sometimes I'm Team Gibby.
See, and sometimes I'm Team me and sometimes I'm Team Gibby. So
because you've got a couple of different personalities roaming around in there. The Susan Powell case is very big, and there are some podcasts that have done it. There's one podcast that's doing a big thing on it right now.
Right.
I think it's called Cold or something like that. I haven't listened to it, but we'll do it at some point. We normally don't like to do the cases where they're being focused heavily on, you know, a big podcast or something like that. So we'll wait a little bit, give it some breathing room.
And the good news is you'll be able to hear all those unsolved episodes really
very soon.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Parker calling from South Carolina. I've been listening to you guys for about 3 years now, and I'm in the lawn care business. So I think I started listening to you at the beginning of 2018 when I was out working on some hardscapes, and it really helped me pass the time. And I got hooked, and so I've listened to every episode of your True Crime All the Time podcast and the True Crime Unsolved episodes as well. And I just wanted to basically call and say what everybody else says is just appreciate you guys for doing what you do and keep it coming because it sure helps the workday go by. I don't know what I'd do without you guys. But I think the banter between you guys is hilarious. I've turned your podcast over to my sisters and my fiance, and we all just really enjoy it and bond over talking about it. But I do think it's super important for all these girls in my life to hear these stories and keep their head on a swivel. So thanks for doing the good work, and keep your own time ticking.
Man, I like that, Parker.
I do too. And I like hardscaping as well.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but
it's hardscaping.
So you'll have to explain it to me later.
I will.
Never been much into landscape myself.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is important to, you know, I don't know. Not everybody likes true crime. Some people don't like the details and maybe they have nightmares about it.
Right.
But what is important is to understand the things that are happening, that do happen, that can happen, and maybe some of the ways to, I don't know if you can prevent everything, but there's no doubt, Gibbs, that you can do things on a regular basis. You can get into routines of, you know, ways of keeping your head on a swivel that definitely help keep yourself safer. I'm a full believer in that.
And I think it can't hurt if you have one of our little whistles.
Yeah, definitely. The T-Cat whistle is so loud that everybody for, I don't know how far would hear it.
Just like some of our listeners have said, don't blow it in your car just to see what it sounds like with your windows up, because it will hurt your ears.
It will.
Yeah.
You know, I've blown it here in the basement, and it's very, very loud.
Yeah.
But that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.